Hey y'all, David here. Welcome back. Today I want to tell you about the time a bunch of Silicon Valley tech bros decided that they wanted to monetize fanfiction. It was a strange idea on their part, and it generated a lot of discussion online at the time. So sit back, relax, because I'm about to tell you about the rise and fall of FanLib.com. FanLib.com was the subdivision of a company called My Two Sentences. As far as I can tell, the only other things that My Two Sentences ever did were some really forgettable horror movies in the early 2000s. In their own words, My Two Sentences was actively involved in the convergence of marketing, entertainment, and online media. While completing a series of feature films under the My Two Sentences banner, we conceived of the storytelling process that inspired FanLib's unique collaboration technology. So the people who were behind this company were Chris Williams, his brother David Williams, and Craig Singer. They were all tech entrepreneurs at the time, and together they developed this specific kind of program that was behind FanLib as a concept. Full disclosure, despite me spending hours upon hours researching this video, I couldn't really figure out what this software actually was and what made it so unique, which is unfortunate because it's what this entire story is based on. From what I can gather, it was kind of a rudimentary fill-in-the-blank style program that had some broader uses and applications. That's where the name FanLib came from. It was like Mad Libs, but FanLibs, so Mad Libs for fans. Personally, it sounds like a subreddit where trolls make fun of, like, Tumblr users or something, but I digress. When they first developed this technology, the FanLib website wasn't really a thing just yet. It was just the name for the service that the company offered to other entertainment companies. Basically, My Two Sentences would market this technology to people as a new way for them to engage with and grow their audiences. It was the early 2000s. The idea that everyone in the country was going to have internet access was still very new and novel, and companies were still kind of grappling with what that meant for them and their consumers. Nowadays, for example, it's kind of expected that a television show is going to encourage its audience to live tweet and live blog about episodes. Bigger companies were just beginning to grasp what this could mean for them, so it makes sense that a company like My Two Sentences would spring up and offer a sort of audience engagement thing to them as a service. Basically, My2C, no way I'm saying My Two Sentences again, would approach these companies and offer the FanLib technology as a way for them to host online writing contests, which people could earn prizes in, and they could engage their fan bases in. They would get more exposure, they would get more interaction with their audience, and their audience would become more attached to their property. That said, when they got started off, My2C's earliest clients were very small fries. One of their first projects was a campaign for a Harry Potter site called Snitch Seeker. With the help of My2C, Snitch Seeker held a writing contest called the Potter Project. The Potter Project was one part round robin and one part user-based poll. Basically, people could submit what they wanted the next scene in the story to be, and then others on the site could vote on which one they wanted to be officially added to the story. The process would then happen again. There'd be more submissions, all continuing on from whatever won in the last round. One of those would be selected to be added, and then so on and so forth. You can only find one section of this now online, and it's kind of amazing. Script so far. Round number 1. Winning scene. Scene title: The Seven Seers. The Weasley children will turn the tide of the war. Prediction is made that the 7 Weasley children will make prophecies vital to the fall of the Dark Lord. What part do Ron and his siblings have to play in the Second War? And what of Percy's prediction, when he still refuses to come home? This is so fanficky. I love it. The company as a whole and this particular contest got written up in an article for a website called Media Post at the time, and in this article there was an interview with the people behind the company where they talked about the potential they saw with this new tech. The Williams brothers are obviously keenly aware of the marketing possibilities that could emerge from smart use of the FanLib technology and savvy appeals to online fan communities. To this end, My2C is represented by a heavyweight Hollywood agency that is hyping the company to potential partners. The best case scenario is striking a deal with a network for a You Write the Episode contest based around an existing TV series, preferably one that targets teens, David says. The agency has also approached advertisers on My2C's behalf. There are aspects with the FanLib technology that could really appeal to major brands, Chris explains. You can evolve the storytelling process beyond existing properties. Let's say there's a brand that embodies a certain spirit, something like Mountain Dew. outdoorsy, adventure-y. Maybe you let the online audience create something scripted that embodies a brand. At the same time, the Williams brothers paint their mission as somewhat noble. They chirp happily about stimulating teenagers' passion for reading and writing, and proudly note that they're providing the younger audience with a constructive online alternative to video games and television. Hey, if you're sick of stealing music, here's something that's actually productive, David cracks. I want you to remember that particularly cloying joke he made about teens pirating music online, because it's quite telling for what's to come later. FanLib existed purely as a service that My Two Sentences offered to others for about 4 years, and it seems like it did fairly well. I found examples of a few different contests. We don't need to get into all of them. But then, in February of 2006, they had their big break. They collaborated with a major TV show, namely The L Word. After the contest wrapped, the TV network Showtime put out this press release. Showtime Networks Inc. and FanLib announced today that fans of The L Word have completed the first network-sanctioned, fan-written script for an existing series. The collaborative writing contest launched on February 3rd, when millions of fans of The L Word were invited to write, read, rate, and discuss short scenes based on an instructive scene mission provided by a member of the writing team from the hit cable series. Fans submitted their original scenes, the online community voted, and at the end of each week, the most popular fan-submitted scene was added to the script in progress. The process repeated each week with a new scene mission until the new script was completed. Full disclosure, I hadn't heard of The L Word until its revival was announced a few years back. I guess I'm not really the audience for it, but it seems like its fandom at the time was pretty large, and they received this contest favorably. And it was a big step for My2C as well. They'd spoken about wanting to reach a point where they'd create a TV episode entirely from fan submissions, and that's what this achieved. I should mention that as far as I can tell, the episode that was written was never actually filmed and broadcast. It seems like it was put up online in an e-magazine, which I annoyingly cannot read, so I can't tell you anything about it, which is impressive, but not as exciting. They had one other contest in 2006 I want to highlight, namely a collaboration with HarperCollins, in which they had romance fans vote on what romance tropes were going to be in an upcoming novel. It's not as important as the other two I mentioned, nor as interesting, but I do want to note this statement that was in a press release about the contest. Romance readers are one of the most undervalued audiences on the web, said Chris M. Williams, CEO of FanLib. I guess at some point they've just started calling the company FanLib in addition to My Two Sentences. They represent a massive group of literate, well-educated women who spend an incredible amount of time online. Through our partnership with HarperCollins, Avon Fanlit is the first exciting platform to bring these readers together in a moderated community setting that is also designed with marketers in mind. If you think that sounds oddly specific in a way that only a soulless corporate suit may find interesting, well, you're right. It's a weird thing to tout as an achievement. This contest was another success, and after it, My2C decided that they should grow this side of their business, and in order to do so, they prepared to approach new investors. To appeal to those potential new investors, they printed out these physical brochures, which they handed out at trade conventions. I love this brochure. It's like a historical document for a bygone internet age. Look at this clip art-ass looking design. It's amazing. No notes. FanLib was going to be big, and if it was going to be big, they needed to make sure that every contest they ran would be a success for their clients. In relation to that goal, the goal that every contest they ever hosted would be a success, FanLib decided that their website, where they hosted most of these contests, couldn't just act as a platform for the contests, but it was also going to be an official fan fiction archive. And so, after they began to plan the archive and had it go into beta, they sent out copy-pasted emails to a load of different fanfiction writers, mostly on LiveJournal, which was one of the main hubs for fanfiction at the time. The people behind this site really didn't do themselves any favors with these emails because they just feel wrong. Hi, Susan. I saw some of your Lord of the Rings fanfiction online and really enjoyed your writing. I work for a brand new fanfiction website called FanLib.com, and my colleagues and I want it to be the ultimate place for talented writers like you. In case you're wondering, FanLib's not new to fanfiction. Since 2001, we've been producing web events with people like CBS, Showtime, and HarperCollins to bring fan creativity into the big leagues. We're impressed by your writing and impact in the fan fiction community, and we value your opinion. That's why we're inviting you to be among the first to experience FanLib.com. Feel free to take a look around, upload some fics, Maybe read and comment on a few. Do as much or as little as you like. On FanLib.com, you'll be able to connect with other first-rate writers like yourself and exchange ideas with the site's creators. Also, stay tuned for our sweepstakes, which will give fanfic writers and reviewers a chance to win prizes. Don't worry, you won't get spammed. We're not selling anything. Together, we can create the greatest fanfiction site the web's ever seen. Best, Naomi. How do you do, fellow fans? Would you like to take part in our fanish activity? Our company is good at the fanfictions. Come join our website. If you do, you may win some prizes for the fandom fictions which you write. The emails just felt very corporate, and fanfiction is not that corporate. And when people realized that they were all getting basically the same copy-pasted email, they weren't happy about it. They took one look at this corporate pitch they were being given, and they responded with one big nope, 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 nope. We don't want this, we don't trust you, get out. The exact reasons why fans were so resistant to this are complicated. I'm going to attempt to simplify them down to 6 bullet points. Number 1, fans thought that in order to register for the site, they had to share their address and personal information. This one I don't think was actually true. You were only asked for that information if you entered a contest, but the fact that they weren't being asked for it at all was still enough to put a bad taste in people's mouths. Number 2, people were really paranoid about all of fanfiction being really illegal, and it made them kind of worried because this fanfiction archive said that they were going to be collaborating with companies, the people who owned the IP for the various things that they would write fanfiction about. Even nowadays, I see this kind of mindset pop up all over the place, and it's not really true. Fanfiction's legality is complicated. It's very much a case-by-case basis sort of thing. Usually it's fine because it falls under fair use as being transformative. I see this bandied around a lot and it annoys me, and I'm not the only one to have ever found it annoying. People at the time did too. Just to quote one LiveJournal post about this topic, if I haven't convinced you, if you read the foregoing and thought, nah, OP is on drugs, I'm a thief, I'm a rebel, I'm a bad, bad girl, then let me say this. It would be a good idea for you not to air your erroneous belief that fanfiction is illegal in public. Because if I were the other side's lawyer, I'd say, look, see, they themselves think it's illegal. I don't really disagree with her, though. That said, the concerns about being faced with legal action weren't completely unfounded. A lot of people came forward with anecdotes about fanfiction archives for shows like Battlestar Galactica getting taken down by the IP holders. And even if the sites were legal, the people who ran them didn't have enough money or power to get any kind of legal counsel to defend their right to have them. There was bad experience from back in the day that did contribute to this mindset. It didn't just come from nowhere. FanLib itself also had some really iffy language in their terms and services, which really rang alarm bells. I'm just going to quote some of it now. FanLib reserves the right at all times to disclose any information as they deem necessary to satisfy any applicable law, regulation, legal process, or government request, or to edit, refuse to post, or to remove any information or materials in whole or in part in FanLib's sole discretion. We can edit your stories whenever we want without telling you, which is more or less what that says in part. Sounds bad, you guys. FanLib claims no ownership or control over your submissions. However, by submitting the submissions to FanLib, you hereby grant FanLib a non-exclusive, worldwide, and royalty-free license to use, reproduce, distribute, and display the submissions in connection with the website. So they claim no control, but as I've already quoted, they can edit them, which seems like they are claiming some control over them. They are asking for permission to distribute them without any kind of fee being given to the fanfiction writers, which makes it sound like maybe they are claiming ownership over them and control over them. Several LiveJournal users at the time did deep dives into this terms of service, and I just want to quote from one of their posts just to give a bit more context as to how iffy all of this sounded. So, if they decide someday to publish and sell an anthology of fanfiction in connection with the website, then that's okay, and they don't owe us any royalties. I know what they're getting at here, but it could be interpreted in other ways as well, and if it comes to a court case, they have a lot more lawyer money than I do, or than all of us together do. You'd think they'd have spent a tiny bit of that money to have a lawyer come up with a better, narrower wording for this. Actually, I'm just going to quote the rest of this post because it puts this a lot better than I can. You shall be solely responsible for your own submissions and the consequences of posting or publishing them. In connection with submissions, you affirm, represent, and/or warrant that you own or have the necessary rights or permissions, either from third parties or through an ultimate determination of fair use under copyright law. So they're perfectly happy to sit there and rake in money from ad revenue, but if some copyright holder who's not a part of their little cartel decides to sue, it's the author's ass hanging over the fire, and FanLib will just shrug and point to the TOS. No, we really thought they had your permission. You mean they didn't? FanLib does not permit copyright infringing activities and infringement of intellectual property rights on its website. I hope I'm saying all of this clearly. It's a lot to read aloud, y'all. OP goes on to say, "Oh, please. Until there's been an actual court case, this is all up in the air and no one knows for sure whether or not fanfic is fair use." As I've already said, it does vary, but let's just go with what they're saying. That being the case, this is just a lame attempt to weasel out of responsibility for setting up a service, the purpose of which they know damn well is to host unauthorized stories based on copyrighted characters and settings and profit by it through ad revenue. And that's the one bit that I think OP is right about there. It would have been one thing, at least in my mind, if FanLib only hosted stories for fandoms and IP that they had agreements with other companies to allow on their site, but they kind of allowed anything. In fact, according to at least one anecdote I found, they just kind of copied and pasted the fandom list on fanfiction.net. By making this a fanfiction archive for basically everything, it seems like they were opening themselves up to potential problems because they had this fanfiction archive that had everything, but then they also had contests for fanfiction that were authorized by the IP holders. It could create some friction. The terms of service was contradictory, shady, and it made it sound like they didn't care about trying to protect the people who wrote on their site. Which leads us to point number 3. The company gave off the vibe of having a financial motive to approach fans. You know that idea you hear where if an app or a social media site or whatever is free, that means that you're the product and it isn't? Like, you're either being sold as a potential advertising base for other companies, or they're selling your own information on to some other people, and that's how they're making most of their money. That was kind of the vibe people got from FanLib. And when you look at their history and how they were created by an official entertainment company, and it was a bunch of guys who hadn't actually written any fanfiction in their lives, it makes sense that that was the assumption people made. There were a handful of people at the time who liked the idea that fanfiction might get some validation from IP holders, but they were few and far between. And that brings me to point number 4. The whole thing felt like it was against the spirit of fanfiction, if you will. The idea that this was just a hobby that was done for fun, that was now being monetized, or someone was attempting to monetize it, just did not sit well with people. To quote another post from the time, because there were so many of these, I swear, everyone on LiveJournal had an opinion about this, "FanLib perpetuates the myth that something is worth doing only if you get paid for it. I don't think I need to point out how much is wrong with that statement. Yet that is the message FanLib sends its members. Write 13 fics to earn a t-shirt. Write 50 fics to earn a $50 Amazon gift card." This is from their Biggest Fans Win campaign from last year. They're assigning a monetary worth to fanfic, and a mighty meager one at that. How many hours of work goes into writing one 500-word story, let alone 50 of them? Hell, how many people can write 50 fics in 1 year? It's definitely less than minimum wage where I live. Ah yes, the Chad egalitarian LiveJournal user versus the simp capitalist FanLib user. You can see it now. Point number 5, the gender divide. A lot of discussion was had about the fact that the board of FanLib was entirely made up of men, and that fanfiction was at the time and continues to be heavily dominated by women. Just looked bad. It looked like a bunch of guys coming into a space that was doing fine and claiming that they were going to revolutionize it when they were doing totally fine on their own without anyone's outside help. And finally, point number 6, strike through and bold through. So this is going to require its own video at some point, but to simplify it as best as I can, after a certain point, LiveJournal made a change to one of its policies, and a right-wing Christian hate group used this change to start reporting people on the site for basically nothing. Mostly they reported stuff in relation to NSFW content, and this hit fandom spaces on LiveJournal hard. The groups and users where this stuff was discussed were then deleted without warning. Oftentimes, the only thing left when they were gone was their name either put in bold or struck through with a line, hence the name Strike Through and Bold Through. This happened just a few months before FanLib started sending out invitations to people, and it was fresh in everyone's mind. Naturally, people assumed that a corporate fan site would also heavily police the sort of content they would allow, and after LiveJournal no longer seemed like a feasible home for them, it was just not a good time for someone to come in with this idea when they were already struggling to find a new place for themselves. And it just contributed to the feeling that fanfiction was in a lot of danger. With all of this negativity going their way, the creators of FanLib attempted to do some damage control. Hi, my name is David, and I'm co-founder of FanLib.com. I'd like to maybe clear up some misunderstandings.
We do not ask for address and phone number on the site.
This is purely a misunderstanding. It probably arises from when people who participate in our contests and giveaways claim a prize. At that time, we ask for this information
only to fulfill the prize.
And even then, our use of the information is
strictly bound by our privacy policy. We do not share it.
Please feel free to review our privacy policy in terms of service. The only rights we ask for cover what's actually posted on the site and only while it's posted. It wouldn't be appropriate to distribute your work without these rights. BTW, you can also make submissions private if you like. As for the site invitations, we scouted for serious fanfiction authors on various sites and invited only a few hundred based on their writing and impact in the community. As with any invitation, each was personalized based on an initial template. They were part of a genuine effort to find leading writers. And yes, we are a for-profit site, just like LiveJournal, Fanfiction.net, and many others. In fact, based on public stats for those two sites, they're for big profit. Look, we really love Lord of the Rings fanfiction. It's an awesome site. We just think that there's also room for a place where people from different fandoms can mingle more. We're working hard to showcase authors and their work, make the site dependable, listen to feedback, and to respond promptly to support emails. I got a few things to say about this. First of all, LiveJournal was not and continues to not be a fanfiction site. Fandom spaces were on the site, and as such, a lot of fanfiction was written for it, but its main source of revenue was not fanfiction. It just so happened to be a place where it was hosted. Second of all, Fanfiction.net does have advertisements on their website, but based on the research I've done about the site, most of that's probably just going to service costs. Maybe some of the staff are getting paid out from it too, but they're not big profit in the way LiveJournal was back in the day. And also, Fanfiction.net was started by someone who was a part of online fandom before they created the site, and they continued to be active within it after they created the site. You, on the other hand, my dude, are an outsider barging into this space and claiming that you have good intentions. It doesn't look good. People in general were just not having it when it came to the founders trying to justify themselves, especially when those founders started spamming people's live journals to try and combat the negativity. Hey everyone, I'm Chris, one of the founders of FanLib. It's really late and I have been working on the site all day. I'm exhausted, but I just realized what was going on here and all the comments are making me sick. We're small companies with 10 employees who work 16 hours a day to try and make a great website. We're real people, with feelings and everything. We've been working on this and dreaming about it for a long time, and you are just here to shit on it without giving us a proper chance. I care deeply about what you think, but this is crazy. We're good people here, and you make us sound like we're an evil corporation or the government sending your kids to war or something. I'm sorry this is so short, and please excuse the fact that I am cutting and pasting this across a bunch of LJs, but I gotta get some sleep. Chris. Yo, Chris, you gonna pay the writers in cold hard cash? And what about that bit in the TOS that allows you to edit people's stories? What about the part where your writers turn their stories over to you pretty much to do what you like? Say maybe sell an anthology without you having to pay royalties. I have a lot more questions, but nothing in your comment here suggests that you have any interest in actually talking to me. And for your information, this was, for me, a reasonably polite rant on my own LJ. I hardly shit on your company. Finally, if you do really care about what fandom thinks of you and your company, you might want to stop spamming and actually answer our concerns. I get that you've been working hard, but all you had to do is either comment to the effect that you'd like to open a dialogue when you have time, or hold off until you actually do have time and actually answer our concerns. Consider a dialogue opened. Seriously, I am running on fumes here. I have a 2.5-year-old that isn't sleeping well and I've been working since 6 a.m. Can you please help me by reading our recently posted FAQ that I think addresses all of your questions in the above post? That's all I ask. So then he links to the FAQ, which people also had some issues with. Mostly just a lot of the language in the FAQ made it sound like they were championing fanfiction writers while they were trying to, in the views of many, just exploit them. Every choice that this company made in attempting to approach this community was the wrong one. And I think a good example of that are the advertisements they used to promote the site, which I haven't spoken about yet, and they are worth having a look at. The biggest fans win, and it's this guy who looks really happy for some reason. Or this one with the piñata, because I don't know why. Why a piñata? Or my favorite of these, this baffling set of stock images of a skinny guy in front of a pink background and a buff guy in front of a blue background. Life before fanfiction is above the pink guy. Life on FanLib.com is above the blue guy. What the hell is this? And of course, once people saw this ad in particular, they wrote pink guy and blue guy slash. One piece of slash featuring them also features the piñata. No, I'm not kidding. Blue dude, checking carefully that pink guy was watching his every move, opened the door and piñata walked in. He didn't exactly walk. He ambulated himself in a mesmerizing series of rocking motions. Piñata didn't have the momentum to hurl himself up to the bed, so Blue Dude placed him there like a gentle lover. With a look over his shoulder at Pink Guy, Blue Dude rolled Piñata onto his back, spreading... I'm not sure I can read this on YouTube. Fans began to voraciously boycott FanLib on LiveJournal, putting anti-FanLib buttons in their signatures to show their devotion to such a noble cause. And all of this was before the site had even launched to the public. And then, someone discovered a PDF of the brochure the company used to pitch to investors that I mentioned before. Surprise! It was Chekhov's brochure, and it basically confirmed everything. Introducing the new turnkey entertainment marketing service. That's right, I'm now reading from a LiveJournal post. It's not primarily geared towards fans, it's a marketing service. Read more in their 6-page PDF brochure with revelatory quotes like, "See how to grow audience, enhance brand, and increase revenue. Let a mass audience collaborate democratically in a fun online game that you control. Increase audience. If they build it, they will come." Massive viral marketing. And how about page 4, describing how their site is managed and moderated to the max, including the following. As with a coloring book, players must stay within the lines. Restrictive players' terms of service protects your rights and property. Moderated scene missions keep the story under your control. Yes, a restrictive TOS isn't a bug, it's a feature. They conclude with the following B2B summary. For those who are unaware, B2B is business to business, so it's when a business is selling their product to other businesses. FanLib Technologies, a division of My Two Sentences LLCs, develops, markets, and manages innovative social software and web services that unleash the creativity of the worldwide public and generate remarkable value for businesses. Isn't that interesting? It's a perpetual motion machine. Excuse me. An automatic content generator. This content generation will be done by fanfiction authors who will be moderated to an inch and made to color inside the lines. Their work will be used as raw material to be finished and exploited by professionals, and all shall be done for the profit of FanLib's backers and customers. That's not exactly the song Chris Williams has been singing to the fanfic community. Of late, he's added some verses to it, asking us to give him our mercy, tolerance, and faith. The discovery of this brochure basically confirmed every suspicion every critic had about FanLib. They were not doing this for the good of the writers, they had a completely different ulterior motive, and they couldn't be trusted. And with all this in mind, it's not surprising that the site was hated by a lot of people, but it did have enough users to properly be launched and last for a little bit of time. And I think that brings us to an important question. What was the site actually like? So one notable thing about the site that I think I should mention is that a lot of the advertisements on it were for the writing contests they themselves hosted, which suggests that its main value to the company was just a place for people to see their contests and to write for them, thus creating product for their partnerships. And despite the stinky corporate vibes, it did have its users. I will say some of the features on the site do seem kind of interesting to me. You were allowed to rate stories out of a number of stars, and these ratings were public, so if you wanted to find something that was high quality, it was very easy to find. I can imagine this could also end up with someone getting bullied because their story has like a bunch of 1-star reviews, but in theory, there's some use to this. You could also embed things like pictures into the stories, which you couldn't really do on LiveJournal from what I can tell, or on fanfiction.net. With the site up and running, they did begin to host more contests. The L Word held another contest with them as well, this time for just a single scene that was featured in an episode.
Artchart and FanLib joined forces to mount this contest in which we asked our L Word fans to imagine a scene written through Jenny's eyes. The fans of the L Word write a lot of fan fiction.
Nonetheless, the much larger group of naysayers continued to criticize and boycott the site, calling those who used it attention seekers, desperate for validation. FanLib.com lasted for about 2 years. And then in 2008, an announcement was made. FanLib.com was being bought out by the Walt Disney Corporation. The archive was going to get deleted, and users on the site were only given 2 weeks' notice, which in my opinion is not enough time. The site, alongside the software which was used to run all the contests and things, was retooled into Take 180. As one article about Take 180 puts it, conceived by the same team that pioneered participation for the L Word, You Write It event under the banner of the now defunct FanLib, Take 180 is a community where people come together to make awesome web shows. The emphasis is on the word together. Produced by T180 Studios, a wholly owned subsidiary of the Walt Disney Company, the site's original series offered an almost unprecedented level of audience participation. Take 180 was a website which hosted several web shows which had kind of a choose-your-own-adventure element. You could vote on what the character would do next, and that would affect whatever the next episode would be about. One example of this was one series called I Heart Vampires, about two fans of something that is very clearly meant to be a stand-in for Twilight, who end up finding the leaked chapters of the next book in their series, and they, or rather, I guess, the audience, have to decide what they're going to do with it.
This is Corbin, and this is Lucy, and they heart vampires. They're about to get into a lot of trouble, and they need you to tell them what to do next.
I do feel for the people who were writing on the site. As shady and icky as it seemed, people did enjoy using it. A live journal group was created for the survivors from the site, those who wanted to continue its legacy, but it didn't last very long. This buyout, in my opinion, confirms everything that everyone said about the site. All of those critiques were completely accurate. FanLib didn't revolutionize the way fans interacted with their favorite TV shows and movies, but it did provide a new marketing outlet for IP owners, and that was the main thing in the eyes of its owners. Take 180 didn't last that long either, though, only for like 2 years before shutting down as well. Not that that entirely matters in my mind. The site founders definitely benefited from the buyout from Disney. It worked out for them in the long run. They built their site and the company on the backs of fanfiction writers, and when they were no longer needed, they kicked them to the curb. They felt no responsibility to the people who wrote on the site. However, that's not where our story ends, because fanlib.com's impact in the long run was bigger than I think anyone would have expected. So not long after FanLib was pitched to people on LiveJournal earlier in the story, one user on the site, Astolat, posted an essay on there titled An Archive of Our Own. The people behind FanLib don't actually care about fanfic, the fanfic community, or anything except making money off content created entirely by other people and getting media attention. They don't have a single fanfic reader or writer on their board. They don't even have a single woman on their board. They are creating a lawsuit bait site while being potential bad defendants, and they deserve to be chased out whilst being pelted with rocks. But even if they were, I'm assuming chased out and having had rocks thrown at them, which I doubt is going to happen because, hey, they have people and money, we're still left with this problem. We are sitting quietly by the fireside, creating piles and piles of content around us, and other people are going to look at that and see an opportunity. And they are going to end up creating the front doors that new fanfic writers walk through unless we stand up and build our own front door. We need a central archive of our own. Something like animemusicvideos.org. Something that would not hide from Google or any public mention, and would clearly state our case for the legality of our hobby up front, while not trying to make a profit off of other people's IP and instead only making it easier for us to celebrate it together, and to create a welcoming space for new fans that has a sense of our history and community behind it. I think the necessary features would include run by fanfic readers for fanfic readers, with no ads and solely donation supported, with a simple and highly searchable interface and browsable quick search pages. This essay goes on for a bit, and basically it outlines a lot of the stuff that would end up being in the actual archive of our own website. In January 2009, AO3 opened its doors. Later that same year, Take 180 shut down. Just a small, forgettable footnote in the history of the Walt Disney Corporation. Editing David here. I'm not sure why I just said that Take 180 ended in 2009, because, as I've already stated in the video, it lasted for a few years. I think what I was trying to get at was that Take 180 lasted for much less time than AO3 has, and it's just kind of interesting to contrast the two because they started the same year, and one of them's like very corporate, and one of them's very grassroots oriented. I'm not sure why I put it like this in my script, so just wanted to make a clarification there. If FanLib hadn't triggered such a huge debacle about the legality of fanfiction and the fact that these people were trying to take advantage of these writers, we would never have AO3 or the Organization for Transformative Works. And they've done amazing work, fighting for the legality of fanfiction, preserving old fanfic archives, amongst much more. Who knows what fandom would look like today without them? Whilst FanLib lasted as a for-profit fanfiction archive for about 2 years, Archive of Our Own is now 15 years old. And I, for one, think that's wonderful. Fanfiction is not something that exists purely for IP owners to profit from. It's a way for people who love a story to celebrate and explore a story even more. And I hope that's what it'll always be. I can't imagine something like fanlib.com coming about again. It stemmed from a time where the internet still felt new and entertainment companies were still coming to grasps with it. I think the closest thing we've had to it is Kindle Worlds, but that didn't last long either and had a very limited number of IPs you could write for. Not to mention, the way the founders of this company talked about fanfiction reflects a certain level of disdain for it that was a part of the broader culture at the time. In every interview I found, they talked about how they were bringing fanfiction out of the shadows, that they were somehow helping it come of age. It came off at best clueless and at worst condescending. And I can't imagine any CEO or any Silicon Valley tech bro anywhere doing that now. In conclusion, FanLib was a shallow and hollow endeavor that had a far-reaching and positive effect on the very community it tried to exploit in the long run. And I think that's pretty great. What do you all think of this? Do you think the people on LiveJournal overreacted to FanLib? Do you ship Blue Guy and Pink Guy? Or perhaps you ship Blue Guy and Pinata? I want to know. And let me know what other topics you want me to talk about. I'm always looking for suggestions. Please, if you're new here, subscribe, leave a like, whether you're new or not, and yeah, I'll be seeing you around. A slight announcement in relation to that, actually. I love making videos, but it takes up a lot of my time, and I unfortunately need to focus my energy on some real-life stuff for a bit. The next video probably won't be out until June, maybe July. I'm awfully sorry about this, but other things have to be my priority for a bit, and I also kind of just need to recharge my batteries. If you want to keep up to date with me, my Instagram will be listed below, and yeah, I'm David M., and I'll be seeing you next time.